Welcome to the Tingles, the musical game show podcast where two self-proclaimed musical experts, myself, Bob Mills, and my brother from another mother, Mike McDonald,
hello,
judge the stories of songs that give our contestants the warm fuzzies, the nostalgic shivers, the adrenaline advantage, the somber slap, sensual sensations.
Which songs will make us all tingly and feel goody and get added to our playlist?
And which songs will face the dreaded thumbs down?
Find out on this week's episode of The Tingles.
Welcome, everybody. It's the Tingles. And it's been a little while since we've been hanging out, but Mike and I are back. Mike is my brother from another mother. We share, we don't share sisters because that'd be weird.
Yeah.
But
according to AI, we do.
According to AI,
they are brothers with sisters.
We tried to write a bio using copy.ai, and it said that we shared the same love for sisters or something like that, which is weird. So it got it completely wrong. So we're going to actually have to write our own bio, which is
we actually have to break out the pen paper.
We got to pretend like we can write. But yeah, we're here today, and we're going to do something a little bit. I'm super excited, but we're going to do something a little bit different. It's an expert show on a genre, isn't it, Mike? Why don't you tell us what it's all about, and then we can introduce the expert, which is so exciting.
He's behind the curtain right now. We don't know what he's doing back there, but he is behind the curtain. We're very excited. I'm very excited too to dig into the world of shoegaze, the genre of shoegaze music. It's a genre that I've dabbled with over the years. I'm certainly familiar with some of the pioneers. I'll say maybe the heavyweights of the genre, like My Bloody Valentine and Slowdive and some of those artists. But for whatever reason, I've just never really I'll say gotten the whole thing around shoegaze. It's just one of those genres that's been mysterious to me. So I'm really hoping that our special guest here tonight is going to enlighten us and open my heart to the world of shoegaze and help me see the light here. So without further ado,
cool people listen to shoegaze, right? So I mean that could be a reason that you're sort of that's not quite there.
Probably the reason why I've just never gotten it, because I'm just not cool. So I'd say
you're 75% on the cool scale. So like maybe
I think the big reason is that there's not enough Brian Wilson. He hasn't done a shoegaze album yet. So once that comes out, maybe I'll be more into it.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, you got to lean into the other areas.
Lean into it, yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. I was just about to say we have a very short contact list. There's probably 7 or 8 names on it. Most of those people don't call us back, but this gentleman made the mistake of answering our call and responding. And so he is our expert tonight in the area of shoegaze. You may know him as the host of Melomania Safety Zone on DKFM.
Yeah, baby.
Maybe you know him for his huge collection of concert t-shirts, of which I'm very envious.
He goes to a lot of concerts.
You may have heard him millions of years ago. Okay, maybe not millions, but quite a long time ago on college radio, back when that was the hip place to actually get into alternative music. If you didn't want to listen to the mainstream grunge or whatever was going on at the time, you actually tuned into your college radio station. We know him as our friend, Simon LeClerc. Simon, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Simon.
Hey, how's it going?
We're doing great. We've been talking about this. We do. Yeah, well, we'll put that in. But we've been talking about this, Simon, for a long time, and I'm just thrilled that you're here. How do you feel right now?
I feel ready for tingly sensations, I guess would be the appropriate thing to say. I've been excited about this for a while too, Bob. I mean, you and I kind of go back over a decade, I guess, musically.
I'd say it's almost a decade and a half. That I realized I had poor taste compared to you.
Well, I was happy that you were my neighbor, so it all came together.
It all came together. I'm going to just briefly describe for our audience how we know each other. My now wife and I moved into an apartment in Yonge and Eglinton area, and it was like the cheapest place. In the big city of Toronto, and it was the cheapest, best place ever. It had like 2 bedrooms and like a small little kitchen and like big living room and like dining room, and it was super cheap. And we were like, "This is awesome." And then we were living there for a little bit, and we were like, "Oh, there's like some cool people in the building, but like the guys upstairs, they seem pretty cool." And like, we're all like just being friendly acquaintances, walking by, like, hi, how are you doing? Anyways, I can't remember what happened, Simon, but somewhere along the line, maybe you guys invited us up for a beverage. And
that sounds like us. That
sounds like you. And I went up there and I looked around your room, and there was like walls of CDs and vinyl collection and just more music stuff than I'd ever seen. And then we started talking about like what you liked and what I liked, and it was obvious that you were way cooler because I was still like in sort of mainstream Britpop, and then you were like, oh, I like this band. I was like, I don't know who they are. Yeah. But then you started playing it. I was like, I really like this, and so I think the nicest thing anybody's ever done, like from a music standpoint, for me, is what you did, and I've got them right here, right now. I've got 3 music discs. I've kept them. And these are handwritten mix CDs that you gave me before I knew any of these bands. And I'll just list a few of them off.
Those are going to be worth some money now, handwritten.
These are so this one was called the Master's Choice Cheese Mix #1. And this is the first one that Simon made me. And it had the Ravenettes on it, Shout Out Louds on it, Asobu Sexu on it, which turned out to be like one of my favorite songs of all time. I was listening to it today. Band of Horses was on this. M83, Cut Copy, and I listened to those bands like on, and there's a bunch more. I listened to those bands on repeat for quite a few years. I will pull up the Birthday Yogurt Spa Mix. So like, that's the next one that you made me with, which had St. Vincent on it, Matt and Kim. Passion Pit, which turned into like a huge love affair. Royksop, Mastercraft, Yes, like everything good was on these. And then just when we were going to get married, which was probably soon after that, we left. And this we've probably been living in that place for about 5-6 years. You made us the Electro Wedded Bliss album, which had Phoenix on it. It had Engineers, it had Calvin Harris, it had the XX, Dog Day, it had a ton of shit, and like nobody was listening. Like I didn't know anybody else who was like listening to this stuff, and you had it all, and you were picking specific songs that should give me the tingles, and they worked. So
that's where it all started.
That's where it all started. And it was years of like positive influence on music. Now, I wish I took some of that and put it into my own music, but I didn't.
He's like, more Coldplay, please.
Yeah, I certainly kept the course of trying to make piano bread Britpop. But I'm so excited to have you here today because you're going to take us on a little
musical
Shoegaze journey. But you've already improved my musical ability, like my musical taste, by so much. So it's awesome to have.
It's so funny because it's like I turned mix CD making because I just would make CDs for people that would accept them. Back in that time, people were like, I don't want this. Why are you giving this to me? And then I eventually turned it into a radio show. So I get to like force mix CDs on people every 2 weeks now. That's amazing. It's incredible. It's like, it's my ideal situation where I'm like, I can just make sure this mix CD gets out to everyone over this broadcast wave. It's a dream come true. So you were a good like sort of a good initial pot to stir around and add seasoning to build that up.
happy to be a part of your intro to I guess. Now, were you doing the radio show before? Like you were doing the mix stuff on Facebook, like you had your little Facebook group and stuff like that?
Well, as was mentioned, I did some college, university, it's Canada, university radio back in the 90s when I was sort of doing stuff in bands and all that. I mean, Sonic Onion was huge in Southern Ontario, so it was hard to not be in a band. It's sort of like the early 90s. And that led to a bit of radio and then just lots of concert going and just appreciation and continued kind of nerdiness in regards to indie music in any which way I could figure out. And then, after that, I just turned into making mixed CDs for friends, sort of nerding out, going to concerts more and more and more. And then the catalyst for the big shift was the pandemic, getting me back into actually formalizing it. It was your buddies at Nowhere FM. Through
Nowhere
you, Bob,
FM.
right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I got laid off. So it was like, I got lots of free time. Do you want to do a radio show? Yeah, that would be a great way to spend my time. I wait to figure out what's going to happen with this whole pandemic thing. And then that just turned into other stuff and other radio shows. And I host like a vinyl show now, where I introduce people.
I saw that.
Vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun. It's all just loads of fun. And I get to really self-indulge in ways that I never thought I was going to get to do. So it's been a pleasure. And you were a big step in all of that, Bob, in so many ways.
Oh my gosh, stop.
It was fun to toy with you. And it was it was great.
Just, if I can play a small role in like, yes, I will accept your CD. Thank you. But yeah, no, it's they're so good. And they're so good. And like, I know that you've got the radio show that goes up on Mixcloud every week, and like that comes up and I'm like, okay, I got to listen to that. And I feel like I'm just logging like the best music because I haven't got to them all yet, but I know that I'm going to enjoy them. So like that's always a good part. You're still in the same apartment.
Heck yeah. Are you kidding me? You talked about like big apartment, cheap rent. Young Eglinton is like basically midtown Toronto now with all the construction stuff that's here.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So it's worked out. I mean, where else would we move to in Toronto? We can't afford a house. And so it's like you're pretty much, if you can find out like the square footage is like 900 or 1,000 square feet. It's the size of a small house in Toronto. So we're just going to stay here until they kick us out.
And so far so good, because we've been gone now. I think we've been gone from there for about 10 years, but still look back on those years. So fun. What a great spot. And yeah, we had a lot of fun. So, well, we're gonna have fun tonight. We're gonna check out some. We're gonna go down a path. You've been sweating. I know you've been pretty nervous because, for those who don't know, who've never listened to the show, Mike and I like to think we're music snobs. Like we're not as educated as Simon, but we still think that our taste is like really good.
We've got street cred though.
I actually don't know where that comes from, but yeah, I think somebody somewhere might think we know what we're talking about. Probably false, but we do think we are smarter than most people, and so when we play songs on the show, we vote them up or vote them down. Then the vote up is really like, hey, yeah, we like that. I'll put that on my my playlist for the Tingles, or just my playlist in general. Like if it really gives me the tingles, then it's like a super psyched Tingles thing. But like if it doesn't, then it could still end up on the playlist. That's cool, right? I think that's cool. Correct. And what we play when it's a big success, so Simon's going to hopefully hear this a lot tonight, is this little thumbs up sound here.
When you feel a tear in your eye,
very inoffensive.
Then it's okay. It's okay to cry.
Appropriately, it's being sung by a purple dinosaur.
Yeah.
So if you're doing hallucinogens while listening to the show, think about that. And the next one, if we don't like it, you're going to hear this terrifying, awful sound of a bully. And Mike's sometimes a bully.
What?
Sometimes.
You gonna cry now? Come on, cry, baby. Cry for me. Come on. Cry.
I mean, who chose that? It's awful. It's just so
traumatic.
It's terrifying. It's traumatic. It's traumatic. So let's hope we don't hear that very much today, but I don't think we're going to. Simon, anything you want to say before we get started? Are you feeling good? You're feeling relaxed? Yeah. You got a drink. We all have a beverage.
I've got my bourbon. Just in terms of how I pick the songs for tonight, because there's so much stuff. When you said, okay, like pick some songs, that represent and sort of the tingling sensation, all the rest of it, I decided to script it in kind of like almost like an educational journey of shoegaze.
Love it.
Excellent.
From my perspective, so that if people are not familiar with shoegaze, they get a chance to maybe hear some of the early on iconic shoegaze as a starting point, and then we'll build towards things that are in between, more current, slight deviations of shoegaze. There's ongoing arguments about dream pop and shoegaze that I'm not going to get into right now, but sort of like, what's the difference?
Are you sure we shouldn't get into it? Because I think we should the name shoegaze comes from, do we know?
Well, do you want me to, because there's a couple of theories about that. The initial one that I read about, because back in the day when this first came out, because it was the early 90s that the term came about.
Yeah.
And before that, it was actually just called dream pop. And what happened is there was a concert by a band called Moose. And the the lead singer actually put some lyrics on the ground and then looked at the ground while he was singing the lyrics. And one of the music journalists who hated the band decided to call it shoegaze as a joke. And so there was always a lot of derogatory comments in the UK towards shoegaze, which was really strange because it was they called it the scene that celebrated itself. Let's put it that way. And so there was all the bands sort of intermingled. They all went to each other's shows. And so therefore it was a scene that celebrated itself. It only lasted a couple of years, really. And then grunge came in and Britpop came in and just sort of killed it all. I mean, Creation Records, that's released the first couple of Oasis singles, was a shoegaze label. But the second they had popularity with shoegaze or with Oasis, they got rid of shoegaze, dropped Slowdive, dropped Swerve Driver. They dropped all the shoegaze bands to just pursue Oasis and Britpop sounding stuff. And so it was a huge shift. And then
Liam and Noel, the best band in the universe. Yeah.
And everybody had to sound like them or else they were going to get dropped from Creation, which Swerve Driver tried to do for an album. They were like, okay, we'll try to sound a bit like Oasis. And then they got dropped anyway. So there's quite there's a really interesting artistic past, I find, to shoegaze. I find that there's the idea of the wall of sound. Is an integral part in terms of listening to it. But dream pop has less. For me, I do slightly differentiate. I feel like they're part of the same genre, but dream pop is a little bit lighter, more accessible, more melodic, whereas shoegaze, like really raw shoegaze, original shoegaze, has a bit more of a wall of sound, more of a density to it. And so I'm trying to focus this show a little bit more on the density, the denser side of it, with a couple of more dream poppy acts in there as well to sort of balance the palette out a little bit as we go.
Cleanse the palate as we go.
Cleanse it. It's like a fancy restaurant.
I think
no wonder it's like no wonder everybody thought they were like snobby. It's it's the palette of music. But I like that community because I think you invited me to ATP one time and like Altamore's parties, right? That was just you used to go to, and I was like. And I was like, fuck, I should go to that. That sounds like the coolest thing ever.
It was.
And I just never really asked Alana for permission, and I never had any money. But I should have gone.
She would never have let you.
I think she would have. She was happy to get rid of me most of the time. I was away quite a bit doing random things in Toronto, but like those were cool. Like that kind of environment where everybody supports everybody else is really neat.
Well, I mean, that first one that I probably invited you to was actually curated by My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, was it really? Wow.
Yeah, they picked all the bands and they were the headliner. And so
cool.
that lineup, that's the best thing I've ever been to.
Another really, really good decision by me not to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good job.
You could have gone to one of the best concerts, seen all the best bands at the same time in this really amazing place. No, man, I'm busy. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I like the way you just called yourself out on that, Bob.
Yeah, that's right.
That takes a lot of personality.
There's so many things.
Friends is on tonight. I got to stay home.
It was a great episode of Friends, though.
I think my bias against shoegaze came from those early 90 days when my university days perception was that it was a bunch of people moping around on a dance floor, kind of caught up in themselves, and a band on the stage basically doing the same thing. And this, like you said, it's not even a wall of sound, because if anybody's listened to the show before, I like that wall of sound. I like a lot of stuff going on, but more in a melodic sense than just this literal tidal wave of sound coming at you, and lyrics and vocals that are almost indiscernible over the underneath this wave of sound that comes at you. And so I've always had that sort of image of it's just a bunch of people kind of walking around on a dance floor. I don't quite get it, and I don't think I've ever really given it a fair shake because of that. But the other thing I find now is this umbrella of shoegaze seems to be quite broad now, like quite large. So I'm surprised by some of the bands that get classified as shoegaze type bands, because I would never classify them as I guess maybe classic shoegaze. So I guess that's what we'll get into in the show. Like, let's dig into it and see where we go.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a big part of it too, what you're describing. It's funny because when you said people moping on the dance floor, I'm like, they were moving at all? Because any show that I go to, it's like you stand there and you just want like floods of sound to hold you up.
Oh yeah,
because it's like a visceral sensation. It's about having this really weird, like it's literally a tingling sensation that I get when I go to really loud shoegaze shows, where like, I get goose flesh and all the rest of it. And it's about that. The lyrics definitely buried in the mix, everything else buried in the mix, and it's just this thick layer thing that just makes you feel like you're flying, but you're very stationary at the same time. And so, but I totally, what you've said makes a lot of sense. And so hopefully with some of these, the transitionary stuff or the sort of the things that I've pinpointed, maybe some of that will resonate a bit differently with you, but who knows? I can only defend shoegaze so much.
Yeah. How is your hearing, Simon, after so many shows?
I think I can still hear, but every now and then there's definitely that conversation with your wife. You're like, what? Yeah. What? But you start to, you also question the validity of that as well. But I definitely have been wearing earplugs for the past while.
Yes.
It's definitely gone down from where it probably should be.
The constant ringing, what's that ring?
Is that part of the song?
What's that ring? You need to.
Shoegaze is defined by a constant ringing in the back of my head.
Well, so I'm actually wearing, because listeners won't be able to see this, but I'm actually wearing a DKFM t-shirt right now.
Oh yeah,
nice. It's like a 10-year anniversary, but the motto at the bottom is actually barely listenable noise.
Nice. Appropriate. Well, I love this barely listenable noise. I'm super fired up. Like I truly do. The stuff that you shared like early on in my mix CDs here, solid listenable noise. So shall we get into your first track? The mic is yours. Give us the story.
So this one is essentially, I'm going for like the classic iconic track just to kick things off and to let everybody know that sort of like the historical, this is the band, this is the sound. And it was the second act I heard. So the first act I ever heard that was actually shoegaze. The thing is, I didn't know the term shoegaze in the 90s. I had no idea what that term was. I just knew it all as like alternative and indie. It was lumped together with me with like Eric's Trip, for example. Mm-hmm. And so I first heard Curve when I was living in Germany. And so that was my introduction, which then Garbage totally ripped off later on. But that wall of sound, and then I heard Lush, and then I heard this band, My Bloody Valentine. And so they kind of took the elements and created like almost like a template that has been copied numerous times by other shoegaze bands over the years. So I thought it was a good starting point to sort of lay down that template, and then we can kind of move on from there. And so, this first track, it's got to be Only Shallow by My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Simon, for such a splendid start. Although I don't know if Mike appreciates that, but we'll find out. He's 75% cool, so we'll know soon enough.
I like the first 75% of it.
Yeah, that's right. My Bloody Valentine. Like, well, let's get to your story. I mean, what is this? Is this the moment, like when you heard this, where you're like, oh, that's really interesting and different? Like, what was the?
Well, it's kind of a combination of things, and so it represented a moment in time where I was like, what the hell is making that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What like, is making that sound?
Unlike anything that I've ever heard before. And my buddy had it on a cassette. And so he was playing it while we were like playing cards. And we were in Germany. I was living in like Erlangen in Bavaria. And he was a guy from Georgia. He had a bunch of metal stuff and he had this cassette. And so we were both into metal. He put this on and we were both just like, what is this? Like, what is happening? And it always kind of stuck with me that was just something very unique that I'd never heard before. And it's so rare to have that moment. And then learning the backstory of how the record, like Making Loveless, pretty much bankrupted Alan McGee and Creation Records. Oh, really? And like how Kevin Shields is a very unique individual who is a perfectionist beyond perfectionists, and how the sounds were made. It's layers and layers. Like I'm sure there's documentaries that cover that sort of thing. And so it just ends up being kind of that linchpin that holds together a genre in a lot of ways that people, again, have been emulating for years beyond the release of this. It was like 1991. And people are still making sounds like this.
Did he release another one after this? Was there another record, or did it never come out?
There was the promise of another record for like a decade, and it never happened. Years. No, there was another record that came out. They called it MBV. When did it come out? I think it came out about 10 years ago, and it was great. It was a great record. People loved it. It did well, but it was the idea that every year was the year that the new MBV record was going to come out. Mm-hmm. Was a hilarious. It almost became like a Guns N' Roses thing.
Yes, the Chinese democracy.
Yeah, exactly.
Stone Roses, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. We're just waiting, and it came out. And now there's apparently he's apparently recorded enough material to make another 2 or 3 records, but nobody's sure if he'll ever actually release them. And so, yeah, that's just kind of how he is. And I met him at that ATP.
Oh yeah,
that really? You didn't go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
there you go, Bob.
Yeah, sorry, Bob.
Another but disappointing feather in my cap.
3 a.m. and I was at the bar, and there's a band called Lilies from Philadelphia, and they were there, and I met some of their friends from Philadelphia, and they were just like, want to go hang out with Kevin? And I'm like that Kevin? They're like, yes. So we went up to a room and just hung out with Kevin.
just chilling with Kev, talking about the next record. Yeah, so Kev, you got that record ready or what?
I got some ideas for you.
Yeah. I made a list here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And take. I
heard it's taken a little bit longer than usual. What's the reason?
Yeah. Tell me.
1996. Little did you know, it'd be another 15 years until it came out. Yeah. But the vocals in My Bloody Valentine, like I obviously have listened to it many times, but. Not obviously, but I have. But are they female or are they male?
Yeah, it's Belinda Butcher, so it's female.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what else was Belinda Butcher in? Was she just in this band, or was she?
That's as far as I know. This is her thing. So Kevin Shields is like the master creator, and then he's got these other characters around him who fulfill very unique and individual characteristic roles, but he is the puppet master,
right?
And all of it, yeah.
and so that band, when they were touring, would be what in size? Like how many people?
4 bassists, him on guitar, Belinda plays guitar and sings, and then they've got Colm on drums. So yeah, this 4-piece. I mean, they probably would occasionally have some people doing some synth work in the behind the curtain or whatever like that. I mean, to me, I've seen them live, I think 3 times. And every time they hand out earplugs at the door, like they actually give them to you because that's how much hearing damage you're about to encounter. And it's just a sonic experience. And I mean, I wasn't going to play on the show, but they do a 20-minute version of a song called "You Made Me Realize." That is like being thrown into a turbine engine. Like you're basically in a jet plane engine, and the sound is rippling through your body. And it's just a really weird rush that they end pretty much every show with.
That's amazing.
It's very special.
It's intense. It's intense.
very
But I like
intense.
it. That like weird, like
Yeah.
like it's just like how do you make that sound? Who knows? I mean, I guess they know, but is it synth or guitars or is like sounds like a slide or like weird?
Apparently it was all guitars, but that he just did a whole lot of funky processing. I mean, I'm not a guitarist. I was always a vocalist. So I'm never going to claim to know any tech behind the scenes stuff. But from what I've read, it was guitars and just the way he manipulated the guitars to make the sounds. Yeah.
Would you say the vocals in this, because I mean, it does seem like a repeating sort of theme in some of the shoegaze that I have, they're soft, they're forward, they're not super like defined, very breathy.
Yep.
On occasion I've noticed like there's sometimes like a guy and a girl vocal, like M83 would do that quite a bit, like where there's like they sort of sing off each other, but there's always like a lot of reverb. But I would say actually interesting, like this feels like less reverb but just really close. It's like really in your sort of up close and personal. It's like it's an interesting sound.
But like for me, the draw to all of this as well is that I feel like the layers are intermingled no matter what they are.
Yes.
And so there'll be a piece that comes forward and takes the lead for a bit, but then it goes back in and it's part of the woven fabric of the song. And often the singing portion of it is kept in the woven part for most of the song. And what will lead is eventually like a guitar part or some kind of synth part that will lead some kind of like melody or harmonic.
Interesting.
And to me, for some reason, like I was a vocalist, but I don't generally like strong vocals in songs. I want it to be sort of meshed together and have it like a united front that propels the song. And that's just, it's a preference for me.
I think I was just listening to this, like this morning, I was listening to some shoegaze, just being like, trying to figure out what is different. But I think like you said it there, it's almost like this meshing, this tapestry of sound where a lot of like other genres will try and like mix in the way of like, hey, here's the guitar over here and here's the drums over here. And it's all
time for guitar solo. And it's very defined guitar solo.
Even just the regular song, it's all well defined and well placed. Whereas this is more like, here it is. And it's like all sort of coming at you.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter that it's all coming. Like you don't mix it. It's not mixed in the sense that you should hear it as individual parts. It's like the whole sonic structure.
Well, yeah, it has like this netting, the structure that you can sort of, it can hold you up, or if you want to, I find like as you really get into certain songs, you can start to mentally tease apart layers and tease apart sounds because there's so much. I mean, there's so many guitar layers in there that are there to make it thick, but there's little variations and little things in there that you put your headphones on and you really sit there and listen, and you can start to tease apart little bits and pieces here and there. And so it ends up almost being like a mindfulness exercise of like teasing these little layers out and noticing them and being like, ooh, I didn't hear that before. I didn't notice that before. And then I find that really, really, really fun. Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, this is one of the songs that I actually have listened to numerous times before in terms of shoegaze, because it is, like you said, probably one of the genre-defining songs, certainly genre-defining band or artist. And the other interesting thing with Belinda is her voice is very unique. It's very what's the word? Not really innocent, but there's kind of a vulnerability to her singing, you know, so you've got this wall of sound and then this very vulnerable voice kind of intermixed with that. And she also had kind of this very unique look, because I remember the video for this song back in the day, at the time when everybody else was sort of preening for the camera, she was just standing there and she had this look on her face, like she was almost like kind of surprised that she was there, you know, like I'm here singing or standing in front of you vocalizing. She didn't even really emote at all, really. It was completely different than anything else that was kind of going on at the time. And so I remember being drawn to this song a little bit at the time, and then years went by. I didn't hear it for a long, long time. And then just maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, it started popping up again for me. And so it is definitely one of those songs that there's something about the sound. Now, the version that we heard, I'm not sure if it's on purpose, but it's not very it almost sounds like it's recorded in mono.
Yeah.
So everything's coming at you. Well, it's not like a stereo, one of those things where you seem to be immersed in it. It just seems to be this sound like coming at you. Both speakers are giving you the same sound as if it's recorded in mono. And I would almost like to be immersed in it and have all of that sound kind of surround you in like this stereo, I don't know, jungle, and you're falling down through the sound. But no, it's definitely one of those classic shoegaze songs, and it's definitely a classic that I appreciate.
Great start. I would never vote it down because it would make me look ridiculous, so I'm happy to give it the old thumbs up. And it's Mike, are you a thumbs up? Or are you?
I am a thumbs up on that.
I don't want to play it twice. Okay, we're just going to give it.
When you feel a tear in your eye, then it's okay. It's okay to cry.
Simon, great start.
1 for 1. You're 1 for 1.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're going to song number 2. Simon, what you got?
So basically, this is I picked 2 classics to try to sort of sum up the dream pop shoegaze variation. So My Bloody Valentine, very, very shoegaze. This next band is very shoegaze, but more on the dream pop side. And these guys were like the first love, and they're still my favorite band. They reformed and released amazing stuff. This band is Slowdive. I mean, to me, they kind of just ticked all the boxes for me when I was a sad teenager. And so the album Souvlaki in particular had so many treasures on it that I listened to over and over and over again. I didn't get to see them back then, which is unfortunate. So like they played their last show before they broke up in '94 in Toronto at Lee's Palace. And then they broke up. Well, they never played again after that live.
Really?
They did make Pygmalion. Yeah. When they reformed, obviously they played again, but at that point in time, they parted ways. I mean, Neil and Rachel went on to do Mojave 3, and Simon Scott went on to do other stuff. Like they sort of went off into other projects, and didn't reform until a few years ago when they released that record. They have a new record coming out in 2023. But their self-titled Slowdive record from a couple of years ago was excellent. And on that, actually,
it was excellent. I love it.
It was such a good record. And I got to see them live finally, like 3 times.
Nice.
And first time seeing them, this particular song, it's like, it's literally my email address. It's so many like profile names for me because it just sort of personifies the beauty of a crescendo in a way that I wish was just life in general. It sums it up so perfectly. And when I saw them play this song live, I actually cried a little bit. A grown man, I was like, my buddy was like, he had his hand on my shoulder. I'm a short dude, so he had like his hand on my shoulder, and he was just like, "Oh, are you crying?" And I'm like, "Yes." Like this is right in the feels. I'm getting to hear this song live, and it feels great.
Borrow my handkerchief.
Yeah, he's like, "Do you need a drink?" And I'm like, "Yes, I need a drink." But this song is When the Sun Hits.
As the sun
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Really?
No, that was never on my. No, I've been waiting. I've been waiting 15 years to hear that. You could have played that a little bit earlier, but thanks for I needed another playlist. But my initial, like, when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, the verse isn't. It's not as thick. It wasn't as like thick as the My Bloody Valentine, which I guess sort of ties into sort of like maybe the dreamier pop stuff. All the instruments are a little bit more defined. You can hear the drums. You can hear the ride bell off the front, which just sort of, there was more space. The vocals, sort of sound like, you can really hear the accent in his vocals. Like, it's a little bit like, the Stone Roses guy, like in a way, a little bit like of that in there, which you're like, oh, of course, right? But there's something at 147 that plays for the first time. It's like this high pitch instrument after the chorus sort of seems like it comes to conclusion, or maybe this would technically be what you call a chorus. I don't know. Who cares? But there's this, the high note, and that's it for me. That's where I'm like, yes. And then you're like, do that again, and you're sort of waiting. You're waiting for it, Then you go through the verse, and you're like, the verse is fine. Like, oh, okay, cool. And then it kicks in again, and I'm psyched for that to come again. I think that was a fun listen. I loved it. Yeah.
The interesting thing with that one, and as I mentioned, I think off the top, that the two bands that I dabbled with a little bit were the two bands you've played so far, My Bloody Valentine and Slowdive, and. My favorite song from Slowdive is Allison. I've always really liked that song. I don't know. There's something kind of moving about that whole song. But in terms of this song, you're right, Bob. Like the vocals are more defined, but you still, are struggling to understand what he's actually saying lyrically. But they are more defined. The other interesting thing is there's no. Even though there's a female and a male vocal there, it's not harmonies. They're singing the same octave, just same notes, but in her slightly higher octave, just because of her voice. So it's not like they're harmonizing with each other, which is interesting. And you're right. This is one of those songs where you have that kind of classic. The verse is a bit more quiet, and then the chorus just comes in with that fist and kind of hits you with the fist in the chorus. But more melodic than the My Bloody Valentine for sure. Yeah, definitely more melody, and I would say that's why Slowdive for me, even though My Bloody Valentine, I really like the song you selected. After listening to a bit of their stuff, I start to, my mind starts to wander a bit. But Slowdive keeps me connected because I think it's more poppy, and that's kind of where my sweet spot is. Like that sort of poppy wall of sound versus just a wall of sound for the sake of let's see how much noise we can hit you with.
No, absolutely. And I mean, this song, it's really about it's the buildup. It's the like build-up. It's the payoff. Like, it's really
that's it. The payoff. That's a good word.
The payoff is incredible because there's like 3 or 4 things you can pick out in the payoff that could make you feel like flying. Like it's like you're taking off. You started jogging, and then you started running a bit faster, and then you just fly. And so, like, to me, that's what it encapsulates my draw to this as well. Is just that people have listened to my show and they're just like, wow, like they'll drop GIFs, like we'll do chats during my show, and people will drop GIFs, and a lot of them are like people floating in space, but then flat, like fast moving trains, and like things that create like this movement and this momentum. And I feel like what ended up happening with shoegaze is it morphed later on in the 90s. It morphed and got stripped down into sort of like slowcore as one vicinity, but also post rock, which basically just got rid of the vocal part and just became like instrumental shoegaze. Like Mogwai initially was instrumental shoegaze to an extent.
Right.
A lot of the same principles were there, but because shoegaze had such a bad like rap in a sense in the press, they kind of like stripped it down and went in a couple of different directions, whether it be like more ambient, like Cranky Records with like amp and noise, Flying Saucer Attack, that kind of thing. Or it went more like a slowcore route where it stripped it down and made it really like, it appealed to like the emo side of people in the 90s and got really sad. Or it went kind of in a post rock where it's like, we still want to fly. And how do we create that? So like Explosions in the Sky and Mogwai and those bands came around and went like, we still want to fly. And that to me is bass. Like when you see Slowdive in concert, you're like, holy crap, they sound like a post-rock band live. And which I didn't expect. Like they're really quite good at building up like that quiet, just like Explosions in the Sky do, where they have the quiet moments where like, oh, this is nice. And then you're just like, whoa, I'm totally like flying through space. Slowdive does the same thing, which I always associate with post-rock, but it's actually based in shoegaze, I think.
Oh man. Yeah. I can't remember the songs off the new Slowdive record too that I went to. I mean, I guess I'm always guilty of like listening to the newest stuff. Like the old stuff's outdated. Like, give me a break. Like, who am I to think that anything from the 1990s is out of date? But you do start to like, oh, I'm just gonna listen to the newer things, and you forget to go back.
Start with the classics.
You got to start with the classics. I keep telling myself that. I mean, I'm just not.
I'm guilty of it just as much as you. Like it's one of those things where I don't always go as far back as I should. Right. So it's not just you. Like you like what you like. And I'm horrible with song names. So people are like, oh, like name your favorite song. And I'm like, there's only a handful of favorite songs that I actually know the names of. Because for me it's such a feeling and I'm not listening to the lyrics. So it's like I don't have a lyrical cue to tip me off. It's like it's a feeling. It feels like this. But I can't remember the same, but it might be track 4.
Pretty sure that's when I get that feeling. Here it is.
When you feel a tear in your eye, then it's okay to cry.
Okay, love it. Moving on to song 3 from Simon.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, like I mentioned, I'm trying to do sort of like a chronological thing. So I already mentioned what happened to shoegaze in the late 90s. And so there were still bands doing it, but they were probably from, I think there was like an Arizona scene.
Arizona shoegaze.
Like Allison's Halo. Like there was very few bands doing like actual shoegaze in the 90s. Everyone went electronic or post-rock or slowcore or whatever else. We got into the 2000s and I was still kind of occasionally hearing little bits and pieces here and there, but it was never anything that really grabbed my attention until I heard this next particular band that it's like I was looking for stuff that was what I call shoegaze adjacent, which I jokingly refer to on my show all the time because my show is often shoegaze adjacent, where there's elements of shoegaze, but it's not straight up shoegaze. I find that it's evolved, and I appreciate the evolution and the ingenuity and sort of the craftsmanship in taking something, an element, and then transforming it into something that you recognize but feels new and fresh, because to me that's creativity, that's art. And so this band's the Radio Department. They took elements that were kind of shoegazy, dream pop-esque. I'm going to say more on the dream pop end because they were the vocals, you can understand what he's saying. They're from Sweden, so there's a slickness to it, there's a smooth element to it that a lot of Swedish music has, but at the same time there's a grit to it, and there's a crescendo with a wall of guitars. And so when I heard this particular track, there was an album called Lesser Matters, which was fantastic. And this particular track, which is a single, I think either just before or just after the album, it has that flying sensation. And I wanted to see them so bad. This was like 2003-ish. And they wouldn't come to Canada. They're a small little indie band from Sweden. I moved to London, England in 2006. I got to see them 3 times while I lived in London. And every time I was just blown away. Like it made no sense. I was beside myself because I never thought I would see or hear these sounds live again at that point. So I thought shoegaze was just dead. And then they kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. They became more synth poppy later on, but still kind of dreamy synth poppy. And then they started touring and came to Toronto, and I've seen them a couple of times since here in Toronto, and they were good. But their original kind of like grittier state for me encapsulates the sort of the shoegaze element that they had that's now downplayed and a lot more dream pop oriented. And so this particular song is right at the top, Pulling Our Weight. How is it at the top of the list? Did it just know?
Algorithms.
The algorithms know. They're sensing it right now. So
like Simon LeClerc's over there. This is the one he wants.
This is the one he wants.
Okay, here we go. We're going Pulling Our Weight by the Radio Department.
We might walk the straight line.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Love it. Love it.
I mean, no secret. Song fucking kicks ass.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I actually had tingles from that song when it kicked into the chorus the first time. You know what it reminds me of is, and this is where it kind of gets interesting in terms of the shoegaze versus dream pop type of music, is Always, their latest album. And surprisingly, when I mentioned earlier how it seems like there's a lot of artists that get lumped into shoegaze or kind of categorized as shoegaze, Always is a band that falls under shoegaze, which I was like, really? I would never, going back to the classics that we heard earlier, I would never categorize a band like that, or even a radio department, at least this particular song, as what I would consider to be shoegaze. But I just loved it. Almost has a honey feel to it in the verse, like that. It's very warm feel the way it's being played, and but then the wall of sound that comes in the chorus it's not sort of as in your face as the others, where it just sort of blows you away as if you're sitting there like the what was it, Memorex tape, where the guy's sitting in the chair and the sound's kind of blowing him backwards. Like, it's not like that type of thing. It's more of it just draws you in. And that's the kind of wall of sound that I like, that harmonic, draw you in kind of sound. And so, so that really got me. I like that song a lot.
Cool. Dream popper.
It's a dream popper. I think I'm a dream popper.
Yeah.
Where's my t-shirt?
This was on my Master's Choice Cheese Mix, Volume 1 from Simon. Look, you can see it right now. It says the cover is a Master's Choice Swiss cheese fondue. It was made out of that cardboard. It is so good. The bass line is so good.
Yeah.
Like, the song is built around this like bass line, but you don't hear it as a bass line. Like, it's just like this beautiful little melody that just repetitive over and over again. It's just like, it's so pretty. It reminds me of Vacation, because it's just got it does have that warm feel, like driving, feel just it. Like windows down. And I've probably done this to this particular song in the car, but just like, it's just got that great momentum to it. And it just sort of, but again, like, nice. And I'm probably maybe more of a dream popper as well, but like, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And the vocals are, weirdly affected, but like in a really nice way, like a really like sort of classy, good way. Yes.
Like I don't almost categorize this song as like what I would think of almost as a lo-fi song in some ways. It's very understated, but there's a lot of stuff going on, but because of the vocals, the way the vocals are presented, it's sort of in the background a little bit, and so there's something lo-fi about that song as well. And again, maybe it's just that kind of warm guitar line or keyboards, I guess it is, through the verse part of it that's kind of there. There's just something warm, as if it's coming through an old set of speakers. If they're playing it through an old set of speakers or something. It's unique, very nice. I like it.
Yeah. It's that the drum machine sound that they've got as well.
Yes.
The lo-finess I find comes from that. It almost feels like it's crackling. Maybe that's a little bit.
Yeah.
The drum, you're like, there's a crackle sound, but I can tell it's a drum machine. So
do they have a drummer, or no? When you saw them, they play with a drummer?
No, they didn't. No. So they had a drummer, I think, on Lesser Matters. Actually, no. Okay. They flip back and forth. They had a drummer on a couple of tracks, like live drums, but they've generally gone with drum machines for a lot of their stuff. So but they're definitely, like, I again, that whole differentiation between dream pop, shoegaze thing gets a bit tricky in moments, because there can be elements you tease apart that are one or the other. This is just, I find, this is, when you look them up, they're a dream pop band. They're not really ever associated with shoegaze, but I find that because of when they were doing what they were doing, they were representing kind of a void. Like, there was nothing going on that was shoegaze, really, in my mind, around that time period, and they were at least able to kind of pull in some dream pop elements that weren't present in other things. I think I was listening to like the Walkman around the same time. You know what I mean? Like, there was like a lot of harsh indie rock happening in the early 2000s. Right. And so these guys came along and you're like, whoa, wait a second, there's texture. Like, I can feel texture. And that made it very charming and enchanting and alluring, and gave me hope that maybe the kids would come around again. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Which they did, which they totally did. Yeah.
This is an upvote sound. We'll do this one.
And what's it gonna do when Hulkamania and the largest arms in the world run wild on you?
I mean, Simon, you are bringing it. He thinks you're bringing it. We're all fired up. It's fucking getting fired up with Hulk sounds. Hulkamania. We're doing it. All right.
God.
I'm gazing psyched. So fucking hard at my shoes right now.
Wow, this next one is going to jar the shit out of you.
All right, bring it.
So the preamble to the next pick. So I went to Japan, to Tokyo in I think 2008, 2009 for like vacation. And while I was there, I had to go to Tower Records to go record shopping because that's the thing you need to do when you're in Tokyo. And so it's up this massive building on like whatever the 20 something floor it felt like, and you get out and there was a massive area of indie music, and I went over to I started looking at stuff, and they actually had a shoegaze section, which again at that point in time shoegaze was not a thing, but in Japan it still was. So like Japanese shoegaze was a thing, is a thing, will always be a thing. They make a lot of shoegaze. So I went up to the clerk and I'm like, is there any specific Japanese shoegaze do you think that I should listen to? Of course I did it while holding other CDs that I like, going like, like these, because he's going to understand every word I'm saying. I like these Japanese, but this. And the guy like his face lit up, and he like, and he like brought me over to this area and started pulling like wax of CDs off the shelves and just handing them to me to like listen to.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, this is amazing. So I started doing that. And then I also turned to him as a side note, and I'm like, I want to go to a concert. Well, I'm here. I like this. Where should I go? He hopped on the phone, called his buddy, found out about a show like the next night, drew me a map.
Oh my God.
And he's like, this is where you go for like a concert. And the concert's for another time, but the concert was spectacular. Like 5 different bands of totally different genres. And it was just insane. It was incredible. So good. Anyways, the band that he was like, you have to listen to this, I'd never heard of before. And I honestly don't know much about them. Like it's one of those things where I heard it and I was like, holy crap. Like it just melted my brain on the spot. And it's in Japanese, so you're definitely not gonna know what the lyrics are. And I like the aspect that shoegaze has become so international. Like there's it seems like the current really good shoegaze bands are from like Japan, Australia, Canada, and US. Austin, Texas has like an amazing shoegaze scene.
Really?
And so yeah, it's like different parts of the world. The UK is kind of like, we laughed at it before, we're not going to go back there again. There's occasionally a good band, but for the most part they're coming from other regions of the world. I'll play an Estonian band after this one. But this Japanese band is called My Dead Girlfriend.
Of course.
And I got to look up the name again, because the name is Hinoshita Fuyu.
So we're getting back into true shoegaze at this point.
Yeah. This is Japanese shoegaze.
Buckle up. Buckle up. Hinochitu Fuyu by My Dead Girlfriend. Yes.
That was amazing.
That's amazing. I thought we were gonna get destroyed with this one.
I was like, oh, this is gonna like hurt my ears or something. I love that.
Oh, cool. So good. It's cool. I think actually it was interesting in that song. We were talking about a little bit earlier about like the idea of just like it's almost like this mindful, like hypnotizing thing where you can hear. So in my right headphone, there's like this like picking part, which is quite clean actually. It's like like and you can get drawn away from it with the like that really like sort of like slidey bend guitar part on the like left hand side over here.
Yeah,
left part of my head. But there's like this, there's more definition that you can really hear in that. Fucking mixing this stuff must be like either a nightmare or they're just like, no, that's it. Fuck it. It's done. Like, see what you can
layer
find.
Everything on. Yeah. Everything on at once, turn it all up to 10. And it's good.
But it vocally like also so interesting. It was track number 14 on the Birthday Yogurt Spa mix from
was
2000.
Was it really?
So I recognize and love it. And but I didn't know the name, couldn't remember. I didn't know the band. I should probably reference your nice CD cases there. But I mean, I love it. I fucking love it. It's so good.
The interesting thing is, for whatever reason, recently I've been listening to Japanese artists, surprisingly, and it started during the pandemic, as a lot of things did, with Tetsuro Yamashita, who did an album I think it was in the late 70s that the album came out, called Big Wave, and he has like some original music in Japanese, but then he does a bunch of covers. In case you haven't guessed, I'm a big Brian Wilson fan, and he does covers of a lot of Brian Wilson Beach Boys songs. And so I kind of listened to some of his stuff, and obviously singing in Japanese and a lot of it. And there's another band, and same reason I got into them, because they do some covers of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, but called the Pen Friend Club. So as in pen pals, Pen Friend Club. And they do obviously music in Japanese. And there's just something, again, similar to the vocals that we talked about with My Bloody Valentine. It's just something very naive about the vocals in the songs, or very plaintive in the vocal part of it that draws you in a little bit. And but the difference I find with this My Dead Girlfriend song is that unlike My Bloody Valentine, like a lot of those songs I find had that very heavy percussion part of it, so it's just very driving with the percussion that kind of controls the song, whereas My Dead Girlfriend radio department, they were much more poppy in the feel. Like it was a different swing, different feel to the song. And so that I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, a lot of the Japanese shoegaze stuff has that element to it, where there's a pop element to the shoegaze, and it can be really like, they've got some stuff that's super abrasive, but then they'll have this like lovely pop vocal over top of it that kind of ties it together interestingly. And there's loads, like there's so much Japanese shoegaze. Like I'm doing one track because I needed to put something in to represent, right? But they've embraced it from I don't know when, but they've just really taken it forward. But that's always the element. They'll put crushing sounds together, or at least like these, because again, for me, I'm more of a dream pop person as well. And so I like the sort of the melodic areas, the in-flight areas, and then they'll always put that almost like twee vocal that kind of like enchanting twee vocal style over top of it to kind of pull it together as a pop song in a sense, even though when you listen to it, you're like, whoa, that's not really a pop song, but it feels kind of like a pop song. Right. So I know what you mean. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll have to do an entire Japanese dream pop shoegaze show.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've got some doozies.
Let's do that. Let's do that. I don't want to.
Can you get those domestically? Or do I have to actually go to Japan?
Well, what ends up happening is they'll get distribution through like Shelf Life Records, or Gazelle, I think, does some too. There's a few bands that'll get sort of distribution in the US, and then I try to buy them from the US, and occasionally they'll show up on like Amazon, which is weird. Really? A South Korean band called Fog that I really liked, their record showed up on Amazon for like $25. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And so,
are you buying records? Yeah, because you're spinning more vinyl now than.
Oh yeah. No, I don't buy CDs anymore. So I pretty much
had so many. It was the wall of CDs.
I think I've still got about 8 100-ish CDs, but I've got over
a couple.
1,000 pieces of vinyl. So I've
Yikes.
surpassed my CD collection. But if we ever do the Japanese shoegaze thing, I've got a fellow shoegaze guitarist guy here in Toronto named Michael. And he lived in Japan for a decade. And and he's huge into Japanese shoegaze. And so he would know way more than I would about this. He's in a band called Fires of Cheektowaga. It's a Toronto like shoegaze, like sort of post-punk band. They're pretty awesome.
We have to do that episode. It's too fun. Music's too good. It's too good.
When you feel a tear in your eye, then it's okay. It's okay to cry.
That's how I feel about this whole show tonight.
Yeah, that's great.
Let's just keep going.
That makes me very happy. So we're going to travel to Estonia.
I've always wanted
from Japan to Estonia.
So yeah, I really wanted to try to represent some of the internationalness of the current. I'm going to say shoegaze and dream pop now, because really I think we've decided that we're in between the two, or hovering. Yeah, we're hovering in that space. And so this particular band, the reason that I picked them, again, going chronologically, My Dead Girlfriend was around 2008, 2009. The next thing I'm going to play for you is by a band called Pia Fraus. And their first album was like around 2010, 2011. And they've been such a strong record label linchpin in fostering other bands within the region of Estonia and around Estonia. So they're just such a wonderful hub for other indie bands to hook up to. And I've yet to see them live. They actually, I didn't know they were in Toronto. They came into Toronto and played like an Estonian music festival.
Oh, really? Wow.
But I had no idea. Like, how was I supposed to know they'd actually like play a folk festival when they're not even remotely folk? And so, but they apparently killed it, but I missed it. And so hopefully they'll come back at some point and I'll see them. I've got a friend who lives in Estonia and I keep bugging her to go like just hang out with them, but she won't. But they just seem like the coolest people. I've ordered all of their records, and every time there's like a handwritten note.
Oh my gosh.
Comments on me. The lead singer guy listens to my show, and so he occasionally will message me with stuff.
Really cool.
And so they're very
our one Canadian fan.
You're awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
They just seem like genuinely awesome people who make just really, really solid, strong, like just good music that I keep coming back to again and again. So, all right, Pia Fraus, Deep Purple Girl.
holy shit. Song kicks ass.
Yeah.
Song kicks ass.
That was more of the last, say, well, 2 songs anyway that you've played. So Radio Department and My Dead Girlfriend. That one was more towards shoegaze than the other 2. Definitely had that feel of the drums were more pronounced. The percussion was more pronounced, and it had that driving rhythm through it that you get from maybe the first couple of songs that you played. So definitely more shoegaze than dream pop for me, that particular song. But yeah, that was great. Loved it.
Oh my God. That song. So it reminded me of Mew a lot. And fuck it. There's some Mew records that I just loved. I killed them actually in Toronto. I used to walk Queen East listening to Mew records on repeat. And I just, there's like there's a simplicity to them, but there's also a complexity to the drumming, which is, and some of the timing, it's not typical. Like some of the shoegaze stuff feels pretty straight on, whereas this just has like a little, like instrumentally it's more complex. Time signatures are like, it's just like, the drumming in this was much more substantial than what we've heard, I think, maybe in the other songs and the other sort of stuff. It's like, that guy's a drummer. Like, that guy's a fucking really, 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 really good drummer. It's not a drum machine. And there's also like a really cool thing in the verse. Again, I call them verses. Who knows what they call them? But that like, like it's just like weird little guitar parts that are super interesting. And I couldn't get enough of that. I would if that was an 8-minute song, I'd listen to all 8 minutes.
And they're consistent. You would like that. If you like that song, you'll like PFRS. Like they have a consistency to them where they'll ebb and flow and change it up, speed it up, slow down, but the essence is always there. Like for me, I always know it's a PFRS song. Like they've got an identity, like a quality to them that I find has really been consistent. I think they've got like 5 albums. And so there's lots of stuff for you to pick through and all the rest of it. I like this one in particular because they actually re-recorded their first album. So this is a re-recording of their first album. So after 10 years, they're like, you know what? Let's go back and actually just re-record the entire first album, just to have fun and hang out and record.
So how long have they been around?
I must be about 12 or 13 years now, I guess.
Do you hear the comparison to Mew as well? Is that just me?
I can kind of hear it in the, like I was thinking of like the Zookeeper's Boy and stuff like that. Like there's a certain element or quality. They're definitely not like mathy in the same way as Mew, but there's still, they've got a bit of prog to them. They've got a bit of Stereolab in there. And that's what I click it to more, but I can see how that could also maybe click a bit more towards Mew. But for me, it's like they like Stereolab. And they're kind of like, they've made a band. They aren't Stereolab, but there's elements there, the little wobbles and warbles and intricacies that I hear in Stereolab, I hear in them as well. Yeah. So.
Oh man, amazing. I love that.
That was great.
I listened to that again. So we're going to play a little bonus sound.
One of the things I was just going to say before you
That's a win. That's a win right there.
I was trying to speak when you
just one second.
What if I vote it down?
Sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt you again. Go ahead. Okay.
I'm going to record my vocals at the end of the show.
How do you co-host with this guy?
The extended remix version. What I was trying to say very profoundly is if you think back to Only Shallow, there's a kind of a hypnotic repetition of certain parts of the music over and over again. And I found that same kind of repetition in this song, very much influenced, well, subconsciously or not, by a song like Only Shallow, where there's the same piece and it kind of seems to be repeated over and over again very hypnotically in that song. So now you may play your sound.
Oh no, that was it. That was the winning. That's a vote up. I love it. So excited. I'm genuinely excited. I was the last 2 songs really just like, yes.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. I'm glad. Makes me happy.
Okay. Let's keep going. I'm excited for the next song number 6.
Okay. You ready?
Simon's Clinic on Shoegaze. If you're paying attention, you're very
take
fortunate.
Notes, everyone. Take notes.
You're fortunate to be here.
I am in education, or I was in education.
Right.
So the next band I chose for a story reason, the song is incredible, but I wanted to represent, like, I don't think I've played any American shoegaze bands at all. And there's such a vibrant shoegaze scene in the US. And like I mentioned before, Chicago's got a really good scene. They've got some great bands, Panda Riot, Ariel, in particular, Light Foils, out of Chicago. I went down for a festival a couple of years ago before the pandemic, and it was awesome. Whimsical was there. Lots of really good shoegaze bands. Texas, really big shoegaze scene for some reason. And so this next band is from Texas. What's a guy? His name is Will Kraus, but he goes by Kraus, Kraus. And the reason I picked him is because he's a kid. And it's almost like the situation where you wonder if he found his parents' record collection and they had shoegaze and he didn't know what it was. Cool. Yeah. And he was like, oh, I can make sounds like this. And then he did. Now, he played in Toronto at the Monarch Tavern a couple of years ago. And
where's the Monarch Tavern? I've never even heard of that location.
Yeah, it's kind of Annex-y area-ish. Okay. It's kind of backstreet. It's they actually have been hosting shoegaze shows the past couple of years. So like Blushing went through there, Ringo Death Star went through there, Slow Crush went through there. So like shoegaze bands that I'm like, ooh, I play these guys on my show. I want to go see them. And so Kraus went and played there to like probably 25 people. There was nobody there. He's a kid. I guess he sort of wanted to travel. He brought his little brother with him to play drums. Yeah. And his brother, I think he said his brother was 18 or 19, but he wasn't sure if he could drink or not. Because from the US, right?
Yeah.
And so he was like, oh, can I have a drink? And we were like, but so I talked to him before and after the show, and he was shocked that we even knew who he was, because he's very small potatoes, or he was at that point in time. He's gotten a lot bigger since then. But again, he's probably maybe 22 at this point. And he's making these incredible sounds and soundscapes, and it's abrasive but beautiful at the same time. Like he's captured the spirit of that without even knowing he was shoegaze in the first place. He knows now because he gets played on the radio station a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was like a surprise to him. He tried to just give us records. Like we were like, do you have any records? He's like, yeah, here's this. And we're like, how much? And he's like, oh, just take them. I'm like, no, we're going to give you money for your records. So he's very innocent, naive, and awesome. And that top song, of course, is this song I'm going to pick. So this song is called Bum, and it is 2.5 minutes of awesome pandemonium, beautiful bum.
Here we go. Kraus, Bum.
I want more of that. Like that should be the break, and then he should go back into that song. Like that should be double that length.
Oh my, that is so. That's the wall of sound.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Like if you were like at that venue, oh my God, it must be loud.
It was a tiny, tiny room, and so it was deafening. Like it was like it hurt. It was
I bet
it was painful, and he had a beautiful slideshow going on behind him that was just rippling and like moving, changing directions and stuff. So you're like kind of nauseous, and you might fall over. And it was
I love going to a show and getting nauseous. But again, that song has that same feel of, again, going back to the very first song you played, that repetitive, almost hypnotic, like that keeps getting played over and over again. And it starts very subtly, and then that wall of sound repeats it and kind of brings it to the fore, and it just gets repeated over and over again. And I again, another winner. That was great. Cool.
So great. I think that's the tipping point, I think, like in terms of what people who are listening to this who don't know shoegaze would be like, I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like almost like Pia Fraus, you're like, I think is gentle enough.
Yeah.
This one is more like, oh yeah, are you ready for it? Because it's coming, and it's like, and it's awesome. But I don't know if everybody can get behind that one.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a bedroom recording. Like
it's like it is.
This is a kid's
does.
bedroom.
It does sound like that.
Yeah.
It sounds awesome, but it does sound like a little bit lower fi than the other ones, and in an interesting way, right? But you're like, fuck this guy, like, yeah, again, making that in your bedroom. I still don't know what it is. Like it sounds like a dinosaur sound effect turned like ramped up or something. It's like so weird, right? It's like, what is that?
There's obviously a technique to this, because a lot of the songs have that same sound to them. So there's a technique to whatever they're doing to make that sound, and then they loop it. So that's the technical explanation for you, Bob.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, computers.
It's computers.
Yeah, that's right. It's computers.
He's working the computer. I mean, I think his parents were probably still are very cool people if he'd learned from their record collection. That's a good guess.
It's an assumption, but I'm just like, how does this? Because I saw a picture, I'm like, whoa, he's young. And then when I met him in person, I'm like, holy crap, like you could be my son. Like you're young enough to be my kid. But the gentlest, nicest guy. And he was just happy to be in Canada. I don't think he'd ever been in Canada before. So he was just like, it's so cool to be in Canada. And I'm like, amazing. So the thing I like about modern shoegaze with these kids playing it as well is there's an innocence and there's a genuine love of just making sounds. Like because this is his pop song, I'll put it that way. And so like other stuff he makes is a lot more abrasive and a lot more abstract, and when he's on stage he's just doing all kinds of fun stuff, and you can tell he's just having a great time. Like he's just getting into the soundscapes, the walls, etc. And this is his like quote unquote pop hit. Exactly.
I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Mike, you giving it a thumbs up? I'm going to play. I think it's one for people to lean into the harder side of shoegaze.
And that's one to grow on.
Yeah. It works great for that. I loved it.
It's funny you mentioned the harder side, because I don't know, like if you start looking at hashtags on Bandcamp, because that's part of what I do is I go into Bandcamp and I search via hashtags to look for new music every day.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'll go to Bandcamp. If you go down to browse by tags, you click on that and you just select shoegaze and then most recent releases or newest releases, and it'll tell you who's uploaded what in the past 24 hours that they consider shoegaze. And half of it isn't, and half of it's not good. But then there's stuff in there where you're like, whoa, this is incredible. And that's how I discovered him originally, was I was just clicking on stuff and I went, whoa, what is this? And then it just kind of blew up after that. But there's other hashtags that have evolved. So there's there's obviously Black Gaze, which is like Deaf Heaven, for example. They're like fairly big. But there's like Grunge Gaze. And so when you get on the heavier side, there's Metal Gaze, there's Doom Gaze. And so bands have added gaze to the end to sort of signify that they've got layering and textures and sort of this vibrancy to them. But in the case of Metal Gaze, obviously it sounds more like metal, except it's not straight up metal. It's got layers to it. So it's Metal Gaze. And it's become very almost humorous in a lot of ways, right? Yeah. So, but there's a band called Slow Crush that were very like grunge gazy they're from Belgium, and I saw them live.
Hear that? What does that sound like?
It just,
grunge
but
with
think
like,
the thing is if it came out in the 90s, we would probably just call it grunge.
right.
I'll be honest. Like it sounds a lot like grunge, but because it's now and nothing's really called grunge anymore, they kind of do it and add like a little bit of layering to it. And they'll be like, it's gaze related, so it's grunge.
Awesome. Okay, so that's track 6. You've got more, as many as you want to play, man. I'm just gonna listen to them.
I've curated it into a 7-song package to try to represent different things, either by international. So this is my Canadian selection, but also going chronologically. This particular artist is actually Indigenous. He's a Ojibwe from the Winnipeg area, and he's in Toronto now, and he's doing quite well in Toronto. There's a music series in Toronto called Wavelength. I'm not sure if you've heard. So he's actually going to be, he's co-running it or running it now. He's taken over from some other people. So he's going to be picking some of the bands. And he's a really gentle, nice individual. His full band name is Zoongaidawin, but you can find him under Zoon, which is just Zoon. And his name is Daniel Monkman. I've seen him live a couple of times. He does a lot of the things that you would associate with shoegaze, dream pop, etc. Except some songs have a certain Indigenous feel, like through the drums and through certain percussive instruments that are really interesting. The song that I picked, it's minimal, it's slightly there, but it's just an excellent song that I feel like everybody should listen to. And so I needed to represent Canada, and this guy for me is the epitome of representation in terms of Canada. So Vibrant Colors, track number 2.
Here we go. Vibrant Colors by Zoon. That's great. So that's Zune, and that was 2020.
I think around then, yeah. It's been a couple of years.
Looks like it was like a Polaris Prize nominee.
Yeah, I didn't realize that at the time, and so, but yeah, he was either shortlisted or something like that. But he was up for the Polaris. Yeah,
so good. So that's another like one of these ones, like maybe less definition, but more like the wall, which sort of like that tapestry that sort of has echoed. That would be in my mind, like that is heavy shoegaze as well, like more in that space, leaning away from the dream pop. Are we, now that we're coming to the end of the list, are we interpreting this correctly, Simon?
See, don't ask me, because it's one of those things.
Come full circle.
Because the thing is the focusing on the percussive elements wasn't something I'd done before in terms of shoegaze necessarily. For me, it was more about almost like how thick the guitars were.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So like the thickness and because for me, dream pop, the guitars aren't quite as heavy. They aren't quite as thick. And it's more melodic, and like to me, Slowdive, even though they're going to be labeled as shoegaze, they represent kind of that beginning point of the dream pop end of shoegaze in my mind. Whereas My Bloody Valentine, I think we all agree, My Bloody Valentine, they're shoegaze like that. Yeah. It's abrasive, it's thick, it's all there. Like for me, for me, it's like splitting hairs to an extent, because it has elements that are shoegazy to me, because it's got the swirling guitar sound that ends up being kind of thick. But it's also kind of light. And so it's got the dream pop in terms of the lightness to it. But to me, it has the density that I would say has some shoegaze, but it's not as punch in your face shoegaze as My Bloody Valentine or Kraus. Like to me, Kraus is just like, this is abrasive, this is rough, this is thick, swallow this.
Yeah.
So this is just three guys chatting about it. There's loads of, like, if you go to Reddit, you'll lose your mind, because people have argued back and forth like for years about the distinction. And to me, it's almost a fool's errand in a sense.
Yeah, this one definitely seems to be, that would be Reddit. You can go down rat holes there for sure. We could be all weekend reading those things. Mm-hmm. But compared to, say, Bum and Only Shallow, there are elements. So Bum is definitely more shoegaze to me than this one. And the reason why is, you're right, there are elements there with that swirly guitar, that sort of wall of guitars. Again, hypnotic, kind of repeating phrase. The lyrics are more... and vocals are more in the background.
Yeah.
But there's a very distinct bass line and very distinct percussion line that both kind of bring out that pop feel to it. So there's a really strong pull in both directions on this one, compared to some of the others. It's kind of dead set in the middle. It's like it's got elements of both, and they're fighting with each other throughout that whole song.
Or they're collaborating successfully.
Maybe that's what it is. Yes, they're collaborating. Yeah.
I think the other thing I noticed about that one especially is, like, if you took that large like guitar or that sound out of the background, there's a beautiful, like a really beautiful song. I'm not saying it's not beautiful the way it is, but you could really hear, like, I've got that song in my head right now. Like I'm listening to it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like the melody that he's singing. Yeah, it's just awesome. Like, and it just sort of sticks with you. And you almost, you always hear, like, a great song is a great song that could be played on like an acoustic guitar, and like that probably could. Like, I would argue maybe that's not completely true all the time, but like, you could. I can hear that, and it's just like a really beautiful melody. It's awesome. Well, you didn't give us anything to fight really over.
No.
I think everything.
Sorry,
everything was great.
This was a great lesson.
This is a great lesson.
Yeah, cool. In the shoegaze, the dream pop, and the line between the two of them and how they intermix together was excellent.
Yeah. No, it's really something that I'm happy there's such a strong community around this again. Yeah. And it's brought out a lot of really interesting sounds that feel reminiscent but new. Mm-hmm. And that to me, that says something. As you get on in your years, you end up getting so focused on what you used to be into, especially, you get into your 40s, et cetera. And you're like, okay, I'm only going to listen to what I liked when I was in university or whatever in high school. And a lot of people fall into that totally fine, totally their prerogative. But for me, I was always looking for, all right, so what's going to keep resonating with me? Because music still means something novel to me. It still suggests something, an area for growth. And so this represents growth, but reminiscing at the same time, which it's just like the best of both worlds for me, where it's like, okay, it feels familiar, but it's new. And there's just so much of it, so much of it. Every 2 weeks to put together a show, I have double the number of songs.
Really?
And this is all new material. Like I'm not playing older stuff. The show I play, and a lot of the shows on the station, we play new stuff. And so it's all stuff from the past month. And I literally have enough for 2 episodes for 2 hours, and I have to pare it down to 1 hour. And I mean, that station, like DKFM, the other DJs, they know their stuff. In terms of international, there's a show called The Velvet Hum, and they literally go country to country and focus on shoegaze bands from specific countries as their show. And you just uncover some of the most interesting amalgamations of dream pop, shoegaze, indie, that kind of thing. So absolutely.
I think we could do this again. If you come on the show, we'd love to have you take us down. I'm obsessed with most of the tracks that you play for me. So this has been there's obviously a few of these that I've already heard, but it was so great to hear them again. And it'd be awesome to have you back on and go through another trip down Shoegaze Central.
Hey, I live for this. This is a big part of who I am, right? So I'd be more than happy to come back and play more music and chat about music. And this is just self-indulgence personified in so many ways.
I was going to ask Simon, is there anything you want to tell us about? I know you have your Melomania Safety Zone show on DKFM, and you mentioned a couple of other shows. Anything you want to kind of plug?
I mean, the show is kind of like the big one for me. So every second Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, I'm on DKFM, and you can grab that on TuneIn. You can grab it via the website. They have a DKFM app. So if you want to go to the App Store and get a DKFM app, you can listen to the show.
It works great. It's a good app.
Yeah. It's actually pretty solid. So a lot of people, and you can vote for songs. And so if you vote for stuff, and enough people vote for it, it goes into the regular rotation on the radio station. But lots of great shows on DKFM. So I highly recommend, if you've enjoyed the stuff I've played tonight, we're all into that stuff. That's what the station is about. It's about shoegaze and dream pop, as titled in the name DKFM Shoegaze Radio.
Right.
So there's that. I just started doing this Simon Says vinyl thing with this guy named William down in San Francisco, where he just noticed that I had a lot of vinyl. So every month we'll sit down on Facebook on a video call, and it's live, and we'll talk our way through 10 picks. So I'll pick 10 albums, records to just show off and talk about, and we just nerd out about the vinyl records that I own.
Nice.
Which again, super self-indulgent, but also just lots and lots of fun. And people can show up and chat and ask questions and things like that. And that's the thing that I've liked about the shows I've done so far. So with Melomania Safety Zone, if you're on Facebook in the group, like if you join the DKFM Shoegaze Radio group, there's a page where the show is, and we all chat there during the show. So it's like a community of people.
Oh, that's cool.
Right.
Yeah, I like
cool.
that.
Yeah. So, and that's a big part of what the station manager wants to do. He's trying to build community. And so for all the shows, there'll be people that show up under the poster for the show on that Facebook page, and we'll all chat. I drop a lot of GIFs because I just I'm feeling stuff. I'm like, this GIF represents it. I want imagery. But people will ask questions, or we'll chit chat about certain bands and stuff like that. But the community is there, and it's vibrant and it's strong, which is awesome. So big on that.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Tingles.
Ciao for now.
Simon, thank you, man. That was so
that was
great.
Amazing. Yeah,
what a trip. Like, so fun. Those great songs.
I'm glad you guys liked it.
If you enjoy this podcast, do us a solid.
Tell your friends, your family, your wife, your husband, your aunts, your uncles, your mistress, your mister, that guy with the really bad dandruff that sat in front of you in English class in junior high. You get the idea.
And we're always looking for great people to be on our show. If you think you have what it takes to give us the tingles, reach out to us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at the Tingles FM. And Mike, what else are we looking for?
Subscribe, rate, and write us a good review.